Welcome back to this already the final segment of today's Price of Business, and I'm delighted to be with you, talking to you about you and your business. It's been a really lively, interesting program covering a lot of different topics, and do want to remind you again, our next guest is someone who's been on. In fact, he was on the very first Price of Business TV show. He did a phenomenal job. Look forward to getting him back on that program. But always, he's here every couple of weeks on the Price of Business radio program, and that's Mr. Lee Kaplan with Smicer, Kaplan and Veselka, and that website for his firm is skv.com. Lee, I got to tell you, I always look the evening before who's on my radar screen, and when I see you on the radar screen, I get excited because I know we're going to have a robust conversation. Tell us about SKV before we get into some topics today.
Well, thank you. When I'm able to dodge all the potholes and get into work, our law firm is primarily a litigation firm, almost exclusively. We do a lot of civil litigation, and then we have some white-collar criminal lawyers, including 3 partners who are going to be trying the last Deepwater Horizon case, which is now down to some misdemeanor pollution claim. The government has dropped all the other claims.
Fantastic.
But most of what we do centers around industries and businesses in the Houston area. A lot of those are energy-centered. Many of them are healthcare-centered. And then just other businesses, vendors who have been defrauded or customers who have been defrauded, people who have patents that someone is infringing or who are accused of infringing a patent, all kinds of commercial disputes. And we handle those trials, arbitrations, appeals, and sometimes mediations in the cases, or even a mediation before a lawsuit starts, in an effort to resolve a dispute with minimal legal expense. It depends.
Yeah.
But it's all litigation related.
All litigation related. Very good. All right. Talk a little bit about, there's so many things going on right now. There's a huge union debate going on. In right-to-work states, for example, on a state level, if, unions aren't allowed to get dues for non-members. And it's kind of a more of a competitive environment. If unions are earning their dues, people will join. Whereas in closed union shop states, if you're a member of a company that has a union, you have got to be paying union dues. And now the feds are now beginning to deal with it on a federal level. Let's talk a little bit about that. Why don't you provide us a little more background and let's get into that topic.
Well, there is a controversy that's existed for quite some time, and as long ago as the late 70s, there was a case called the Abood case, which essentially said that you can't be compelled to pay union dues if you're a public employee, but you can be charged the fees, essentially, for the services the union theoretically is providing to you through collective bargaining, which would cover you as well. That's been chipped away over time, and there's a case that was just argued yesterday where 7 or 8 California school teachers have sued the California Teachers Association and said, inherently, when you negotiate with the state or municipality, that is that's political expression, and my First Amendment rights are being violated if you force me to pay any money to you, the union, for negotiating with the state or the city or the school district. It's called Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association, and most of the news reports on yesterday's argument say that Judge Kennedy, who's often the swing vote, was very, very skeptical of the Teachers Association argument. So right now the prediction is that Abood will essentially be overruled, and there'll be a blanket ruling that you cannot force somebody to pay money to a union for collective bargaining with the state. That's sort of the present wisdom. But, people on the Supreme Court often fake right and go left, or fake left and go right. So I don't know for sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. Look at Justice Roberts, who's been the most shocking jurist to watch in my lifetime. And so, it's quite interesting. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that. Do you kind of agree with that consensus?
I have to admit that I believe that I'm a First Amendment absolutist. And that's regardless of whether it's union dues are what many people say is obscenity. I believe in the First Amendment, period. And I think, personally, this infringes my First Amendment rights. I'm not a member of a union, just as it would infringe my First Amendment rights to watch pornography. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I think Hugo Black, long deceased U.S. Supreme Court Justice, was the best on that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What's interesting is he was once a Ku Klux Klan member before he got on the U.S. Supreme Court and became one of the staunchest defenders of the First Amendment.
That's interesting.
That's just me. That's my view.
Yeah, in my own opinion, I have gone from a three-legged stool Republican in the Reagan tradition to much more libertarian over time, and there was a time where I had serious problems with the burning of the U.S. flag. I thought that was inappropriate and maybe even criminal, or should be criminal, and you know what? If we are truly a free, great free country, we have enough strength to have our flag burnt, and it's no reflection of our liberty, but actually it is in that it somewhat celebrates our liberties. And so I've kind of evolved in that too. Let people have their free speech.
Well, say what you want about Justice Scalia. He provided the fifth vote on that flag burning case some years ago, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
It's a First Amendment. It's nauseating and sickening to me to think of people, particularly Americans, burning the flag, but that's First Amendment.
That's exactly right, and I agree with that.
To me, that's an area we do not infringe on, short of inciting people to violence.
And I can't believe that they got 4 votes with something so blatantly clear in the First Amendment of the Constitution. That just kind of shows you how perilous all this is, in my opinion.
Well, keep in mind, Citizens United was a closely divided Supreme Court, too, and to me, that, too, is First Amendment. I'm sorry that rich people dominate politics because of their contributions, but to me, that's a First Amendment issue.
Yeah.
Boom.
Talk a little bit about the fact
closed.
that we've had so many different cyber issues happening at places like Target and major shopping institutions where people have been exposed. It seems to me that, that there's a possibility of massive vulnerability for these companies at some point for all this that's taking place. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I agree, and I now see CLE, that's continuing legal education courses, being offered on cybersecurity class actions and how to defend them and how to prosecute them. And it's only a matter of time before that filters down to more and more medium businesses. I mean, what happens when Target is the victim of malware that it picks up from a vendor that, for one reason or another, it did not protect itself against enough? The vendor, at the very least, is going to get dropped by Target, but very possibly sued. Now, some people buy insurance against that, but the losses can be so great that it would overwhelm the insurance. So that's a really hot topic for medium businesses and small businesses who regularly deal with the public, and in fact, medium and small businesses who regularly deal with larger customers. It's an issue for our law firm, and I would tell every business, that has more than just 2 or 3 employees, they need to have IT people regularly check their systems and update them in every way. It just so happens that my birthday is in January. I've gotten my first birthday present a little bit in advance, and it's Ted Koppel's book called Lights Out, and it's about a cyber attack on the nation, which, of course, the Russians and the Chinese and ISIL and who knows who else would love to launch against us. So I think this is a topic that's going to dominate 2016.
Yeah, I think you're
scary.
Probably right. Yeah.
Because we're so dependent. I mean, there's so many businesses who won't even deal with you in paper anymore. They only send their bills by email. They want you to pay everything, through a credit card or whatever over the Internet. They don't want a check from you. You can't pay your dues to a lot of organizations except through PayPal or online. So it's we're vulnerable. And I just tell every business you're going to have there is a legal threat to you out there if your systems are not continually updated.
I'm curious if there's been any, I haven't heard about any insurance companies that are insuring that area of a business. I'm sure it's just a question of when. Of course, that means there's going to be more cost for consumers because when they buy that insurance, they got to pass that cost on to consumers. But have you heard anything?
Well, if you look online and just type in cybersecurity insurance or cyber insurance, for example, I'm looking right now, AIG, and I'm certainly not advocating for any particular carrier, but if you just type that in, AIG offers insurance for businesses, including something called Cyber Edge. If you look at Chubb, they do the same thing. They provide a cybersecurity policy. There are lots of companies that do that.
Yeah, and I imagine that's going to become...
You wonder about their financial stability because the losses potentially are massive.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Sometimes in the billions, depending on the size of the company. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, once you... Remember, if a target gets infected, you're talking about billions of dollars. And so many people sell to those kinds of companies, and it can infiltrate from one vendor to the next to the next. So, the numbers that are spent on data breaches are estimated to be well over $500 billion.
Yeah.
Just in the last year, I'm looking at something that Prudential put out where they're, I think, quoting one of the former FBI directors or the Department of Justice people. But just last year, if you talk about the last year or two, Kmart, Target, Staples, Home Depot, J.P. Morgan Chase have all been targeted successfully. Well, if they can target those companies and you're a medium-sized business, think how vulnerable you must be.
Yeah, you're a much more softer target. We only got about a minute left, so we're going to leave it at that. You got a great topic we're going to talk about in the future about Texas, the Supreme Court of Texas and private equity firms. A lot of interesting stuff there that have far-reaching implications about how attractive Texas stays for external investment. But we run out of time. But we did a great job covering these topics, as always. I appreciate your time, Lee.
Well, I look forward to talking with you in a couple of weeks.
You bet. We'll talk about that topic because I think it's really timely. Lee Kaplan, Spicer, Kaplan, and Veselka. That's skv.com. Thank you, sir. And when we come back tomorrow, we're going to have more for you. Do want to remind you, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. Best content here, especially this interview, will be over there at usdatareview.com. Have a great day. Spend it wisely right here.